We are live. We've got this music going here because it's what Bill listens to all day.
I think we need to stop the music. It's too much. It's actually louder than us. Okay, thank God. Right.
So, welcome to today's episode of the Secret Scribes Live. Today we have the SPFBOX edition with Sean O'Boyle, who wrote a book. If you did not know, he has written a book. And Bill Adams, who is stuck here with these louts.
I don't think that's very nice.
It's not very nice, but what do you expect?
It's more Bill? For this guy up next to me.
You're pointing the wrong way from my perspective. So who's the lout now? There we go. Okay.
All right. So we are. Let's see. We have 4 comments already. We've got Timothy Wolf. Hello.
Hello, Timothy.
Tim made it. Groovy. The most important one. All glory to the Secret Scribes. Especially the bald members of the Secret Scribes. There's something about them. They're very cool.
Sure.
So we're here with John and Bill today, who are both in SPFBOX in different groups, so that they are not actually fighting each other to the death yet. That is a possibility in the future. We will have to see. Kind of hoping it happens because that would be fun. But
I don't have the annual leave to come over to America for a fight, so it'll have to be.
I'd rather come to Ireland, so don't worry.
Yeah, I'm actually in London, so it's all right. It's even worse for you.
Well, I'd rather come to London too.
Okay, great. Excellent.
You actually have to both meet in Texas.
Oh my gosh!
I don't need to go back to Texas. Alex can stay down there for us.
It's actually Alex Schurman will host the fight to the death.
Okay, fine.
It's been decided. So last time we had a live, we talked about how in order to be a successful author in the Secret Scribes, you have to have a name that starts with R and has sand in it. So my question is, for the two of you, what is your R Sand name?
R Sand Jr.
That's really boring.
Okay.
I know.
R, and then in quotes, R. Neil Gaiman's The Sandman. There you go.
All right. I don't know if they have quite the same vibe as Rave Sandawson, which is mine.
Well, you put one here on Google Doc called Rianne Sandboyle.
Yes, I came up with Rianne Sandboyle and Rill Sandadams.
Is Rianne Sandboyle not like one? It sounds like he's a character in the First Law. Isn't that not the guy who interrogates people?
Sandinglocta? Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, you have a few more teeth, but I think that's about the only difference there.
Marginally more teeth, yeah.
So first off, we'll kind of go with some SPFBOX here and go ahead and start with Sean. Tell us a little bit about your book. Tell us the basics, like how long did it take to write? Where did you get the idea? All of that kind of fun stuff. So we have an idea about your book before we start getting into the nitty gritty.
Is this the part where I show my book?
It is.
Yeah. Here's my book. I wrote it. It's called The Ballad of Sprikit the Bard and Company. It is. I would describe it as a fantasy comedy adventure novel, and I know a lot of new authors and indie authors like to say it's this meets that. So for me, it's like Discworld meets Liza Lochlamore, the Gentleman Bastard series. So basically, if you like the wackiness of Discworld and the lightheartedness of Discworld mixed with the plots, the twists, the turns, and the schemes of Liza Lochlamore, I think you really like this book. It's about a little bard who basically likes to do all sorts, like, you know, playing songs, pulling schemes on people, all that kind of stuff. And he's caught up in some sort of predicament that he can't get out of. And he's basically useless at all things like physical. And his only sort of weapon is his wit and his tongue, which gets him into a lot of trouble. And he has to basically rely on the reluctant help of 2 people who are also caught up in his mess. And it's basically about him trying to get from point A to point B without getting killed along the way. I came up with the idea of the book. Oh, God. So I play a tabletop game with my friends called Pathfinder. Are you familiar? It's
Yep.
like Dungeons and Dragons, but like I think there's some more around combat rules or whatever. I don't know really what the differences are. And in that I played a bard character, and I thought it was a lot of fun because whereas my friends were all just like we're warriors with swords or whatever, I was able to, while my character couldn't fight to save his life, he had lots of high points in like charisma and sneaking and all that kind of stuff, and I found it really fun to use that playfully for a character. So I just thought, well, that'd be a fun character just to write a little short story about. So I did, and that's the first 3 to 4 chapters of the book. It was kind of the initial short story, and then I put it away because I was like, oh, I did my little thing, and I put it away, and then I didn't think much about it. And then the following year, I came down with the spot of COVID, and I was sitting in my room. I was bored. I was sick of just watching TV and playing video games. So I actually pulled up my laptop, read through it. This has legs. And I just kept writing, and yeah, and then it became the book I'm holding here in my hands. So yeah.
Very nice. Bards are the best class in D&D, Pathfinder, etc. They're also my favorite to play. So very nice. So how long did it take you to write once you started writing it again?
It took me the guts of a year to get draft 1 done, but noting that I had a bit of a boo-boo with my Google Docs. By the way, I was using Google Docs like an absolute psychopath. Never again. I'm purely on Microsoft Word these days. Had a little problem with my Google account. I lost access, and I lost access to my manuscript, which I hadn't backed up in a while, and I lost the guts of 20,000 words of progress that I had to rewrite. So that caused a bit of delay in the first draft. But that being said, it was a better 20,000 words because of it. So the guts of a year, trying to balance it with my personal life and with work and all that kind of malarkey. Yeah.
Well, you're not the only... Oh, go away, Alex. You're not the only person here with a little bit of insanity. Timothy still writes in Google Docs.
I would stop immediately and just either get like a Scrivener or whatever the heck, or just spend the cash on a Microsoft Word.
What do you use, Bill?
Oh, I'm a Word guy, 100%.
Word.
Scrivener. I don't even own
Word.
Word, but I'm going to have to get it at some point for editing.
I don't like it. Like, so Dewey, my co-author, which I can get to in a second here, he uses Scrivener. So I don't like it. I just not a fan. Just give me a good old fashioned Word.
No bells, no whistles.
So Bo is here, and he's asking when the street fight is going to go down between us and the break-ins.
Anytime, any place. Yeah.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Common theme is swords at dawn. So
I'm envisioning like the
Yes.
Anchorman fight between the two news channels. That's what it's going to be. I'm going to bring a grenade and a mace.
I'm going to be the guy who gets his arm cut off in like the first 2 minutes and just like stands there crying, looking at his arm.
Oh,
And
dude.
Just
unable to
speaking
do
bad
any fighting
Spanish.
whatsoever. So yeah, whenever, anytime we're ready for the break-ins, because I mean they're great and they are one of our influences. So we would be very happy to be
break
on
them.
the same screen as them, fighting, exchanging, cool stories, whatever you want to say. So Sean, who's your favorite character?
In my book or in general? Probably my book.
We can
right?
do both. We'll
Okay.
go book first, then in general.
I would say my favorite character from like a purely like moral standpoint probably is the character of Torg, which is one of what I call the brutes. They're like a kind of big loutish, like Bill's subtitle there, loutish kind of hulking creature, similar to like an orc, but like a little bit different. And he's a very kind of not calm and collected person, sort of. He's very, morally correct on things. He doesn't like subterfuge. He doesn't like scheming. He doesn't like tricking people. He doesn't like stealing. Basically, he's the antithesis to Sprikit. So I think I like him the most because he's just like a guy that you could depend on him. You could depend on him. If I was moving house, I would ask Torg. I wouldn't ask Sprikit. So, for
I
help.
mean, one's
Well, if
4
you ask
foot, one's
Sprickard, he
8
might
feet, I
take
guess.
your house with him wherever
Yeah,
he
exactly.
goes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
I definitely think of the brutes as like orcs with spiky faces.
Basically, yeah. I keep the descriptions of the brutes vague enough that I hope everyone has their own idea of what they look like. And that is not just me being a lazy author. That is me saying, let the imaginations run wild, children. Or adults, whoever reads it.
And then who's your favorite character just overall, if you can think of one?
I'm going to stick purely to fantasy. I would say Matt Cawthon from The Wheel of Time, particularly towards the latter end of the books.
Okay. Right now, Rob Sanders is raising a glass and cheering your name because I know he's a big Wheel of Time guy.
Oh, yeah.
You're funny.
I've read that one book of it, and it's a pretty good book. And then I was like, I don't think I want to read 13 more. That sounds like a lot. But all right, so we will come back to you, Sean. Alex says that Matt's a very popular one. But first off, Bill, we're going to hit with you with your book that you wrote along with Dewey, how long it took you to write it, how did it get going?
Green screen doesn't work with the green cover.
Oh my God, it's a translucent book.
Yeah, green screen, green cover. So this, The Tenacious Tale of Tanna the Tendersword, if you can read it, is actually a middle grade fantasy. So this is not my typical bread and butter of what I normally write. So it was kind of interesting because me and Dewey have a really long story. Not long story, but how we got to this point was kind of long. So me and Dewey started as critique partners, and he had a version of this story, but needed a lot of work, needed a lot of tender loving care. And I am pretty pushy when I know a story is really good. And he'll admit this, that he needs a kick in the pants a lot of the times. So he was losing interest in it because we were both trying to do trad publishing route. Querying was not working out, and he was starting to lose focus, and I just couldn't let it happen because I love this book. I thought it was just so much fun. It needed some little bit of extra stuff to it, but I knew it could be awesome. So around 2021-ish, I guess you'd say, I kind of approached him and said, Dewey, what do you think about, going at this full bore as a partnership? I have a few, like a lot of the ideas that he implemented in previous versions were from me, just to help boost some things. And he was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then me being the project manager that I am, was like, I'll keep us on task. I'll work on the unfun stuff. You focus on the artwork, which he drew the cover and he drew all the artwork that's inside. And he's, the main plot is his. But I added a bunch of stuff to it. So when we got to about 20, we did query this for a little while, and I was kind of shocked that we didn't get any movement on it, just because I knew that if I was a teenager, that this is like the age level it is, I would have read the hell out of this book. But apparently didn't get anywhere, obviously. So we decided to go down the self-pub route, and Dewey's actually happy we did because he has full control over what we put into it. And, all of the illustrations that we put into this were his idea from start to finish. So we're both really happy about this, and we both bring different strengths to it, where I come at it from a very editorial mindset, and Dewey comes at it from a very whimsy middle grade, because he was a former teacher, middle grade teacher, which for you across the seas, that's, your 5th and 6th grade level, your secondary level. So yeah, we just have a good partnership, and it worked. I think it worked out pretty well, and I enjoy the story. Hope others do. I know Dave said he likes it, so I trust him. but it's hard to trust Dave at times. So yeah, but Tim liked it. Tim was our first person to read it, and he enjoyed it. So, and Tim,
If you want in the comments, you can say who your favorite character from Tanna is and why it's Pegs. And then Bill, who's your favorite character?
I mean, Pegs is great. Don't get me okay. So for the people that haven't read it, there's 3 main characters. There's Tanna, who is a would-be champion, and then there's Galdefort Quillpen, which is a very, very grumpy little chronicler in training, and they're on their first quest. Pegs is their guide, and Pegs is a peg-legged rooster that has a sword in his peg leg, and he also does some things later in the story where he eats some berries and belches fireballs and does all this stuff, and he's very lazy. So he's a fun arc. He's got a really good fun arc. Personally, though, I do enjoy Galdefort because he is a very grumpy protagonist, and seeing him be so antithesis of what the main character or what the champion Tanna was just a lot of fun to write. Because we write from Galdefort's point of view, so we're writing from the Scribes' point of view. And we make a joke, Sean, in there. One of the characters calls him a bard, and he gets really pissed off that he calls him a bard. Because chronicler is not a bard.
One thing that I find kind of funny, reading the book, I definitely think of Galdefort as like the you in the book. Like, I'm like, okay, Bill, Galdefort, very similar. And it's funny because this is actually the first time I have spoken to Sean, like, not in a text. And I definitely was like, Sean is Sprikit. They have the same vibe.
Good.
So your guys are just like, Sean, you are the conniving bard.
Conniving? What have I done in this call to be conniving? I've just been very clear.
It's the mustache, man. It's the mustache. It makes you look conniving.
It's the mustache.
I'll twirl it before I type.
Bo says that he would like to have a peg leg and walk around with a hidden sword in it. I think we all would. Like,
does the peg leg rooster fight with its sword peg leg? Does it like use its leg?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, let me find the image. I could show you.
Yeah,
it's like Kung Fu where they kick out, but sword. If it were not a middle grade, like sword through the neck, squelching blood, death. It's middle grade, so it's like the guys are like, we'll run away so that we don't get hurt. Bo, once again, correct. Irish accent
equals conniving. Okay, right. Jesus.
Bo is correct.
Don't know what to make of that. What was it going to say? I think the idea of a character with a sword peg leg is incredible. I think it would also make a very good Dark Souls boss, and that's my 2 cents on that matter. Also, the name Galdefort. What a fantastic name for a fantasy character. That's a solid.
Galdefort Quillpen, by the way.
Oh God! Wow. God, I'm jealous.
I feel like someone with a huge mustache would also be a great boss in Dark Souls.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. I get it. Very good. Cool.
Pegs would defeat Aragorn. I mean,
Ooh.
Aragorn's too busy making speeches,
Pegs
would walk
would be
behind
sleeping.
him.
Pegs is very lazy.
Help some fire at him.
But no, to your point though, Dave, Galdefort is actually Dewey more than he is me, which is really funny. I mean, because Dewey is, imagine me, but grumpier, but also very sensitive.
It's hard to imagine.
Sensitive. Dewey's pretty sensitive. He'll admit it. He will admit it. I'm not making lies up and slandering him.
Can I ask a bit more about the co-authorial process? Because it's hard enough writing one book by myself. I could not imagine a collaborator in that shared doc with me mess with my words. How does that work?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because we're actually gonna start trying to do videos and blog posts on that exact topic, because it's, especially in self-pub, it's not normal to have a co-author. And it's interesting because our processes are completely different. I am a pantser. Like, my outlines are maybe 2 or 3 small ideas of what's going to happen in a scene. And when I say small ideas, that's like 2 or 3 words, maybe, in a scene. He is a complete plotter. His plots, like his chapter plots, are like 5, 6, 7 pages, which is basically a whole draft anyway.
Just write the chapter.
So it was, but so with the first book, with this first book, it was a lot easier because a lot of it was already written. So I was able to come in with, the ideas of what we can do to streamline this plot, because his original iteration had a lot of excess stuff. And I'm like, this is like adult epic fantasy level excess stuff. We're aiming for kids. So I had to cull a little bit and make it more streamlined. But when it came to writing, it was more, he sent me what he had, and I went at it. And the way I do drafts is I start from scratch. So I'll look at a previous draft and start from scratch each chapter again, just because that's the easiest way for me to tighten scenes and cut words and make things, a little bit tighter. So we're actually in the process now of starting book 2, and it's going to be a fun process to actually truly figure out, because I need him to write the basic stuff to get the middle grade voice down, where I come in and add the detail, that makes the story a little more flow well. I mean, that's lack of better words. Make it flow, make it read well. But yeah, so, it's not a fun process, I'll tell you that. With I'm sure, as you know, with the publishing process of self-publishing, it's not made for 2 authors. So there was a lot of extra learning curve that we had to do. Like, for example, setting up the book on Goodreads was just an absolute nightmare. Because if you recall, you have to have an author to get the Goodreads author. You have to have an author email that is linked to it. Well, I had to create an author email for both of us, and pay for an author, or set up an author email on our website, all that good stuff, just to get them to link. And there was multiple steps that we had to go that they're like, oh, we don't believe you. Like, no, this is here, this is that. And then I have a very simple name. Bill Adams is like, there's 20 of them on Goodreads. So like, every time that we put something into, or I put something into Goodreads, I have to go through the librarian group to get them to link everything, just to make sure. And then with the dual authorship, he had to verify that. It was like, yes, that's my co-author. Everything is good to go. So it's just,
Lord above.
It's a nightmare. A lot of fun. No.
Well, I think that part of the authoring process is definitely the worst. Doing all that, the admin, right? That's no fun 100%. At all. 100%. Yeah. I think everything up to the final touches of the copy edit for me was perfectly fun, and then the sprint from January to March of getting on a KDP and the proofs and the Goodreads and the blah, it was awful. Yeah, terrible. But we do it because we love it.
So, Bill, there was a question about how they were. Alex was shocked that you were a pantser.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I am a project manager by career, so I am pretty particular about timelines and outlines and stuff like that. But when it comes to writing, I can't do it. I don't like being hemmed in. I feel like when you have a very detailed plot or an outline, your characters are stuck in a box, and I don't like to have that. I like to let my characters tell me what they want to do. Middle grade is a lot different, and this, for anyone that doesn't read middle grade, the big difference in middle grade books is that or let me preface that by saying, with adult books or young adult books, it's all about character agency, right? You're always getting what are the motivations of the character in this plot. In middle grade, it's the exact opposite. Characters don't have agency, because at that age, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, you're just figuring out what the hell's going on in this world. So in middle grade books, it's the plot that drives the characters forward. So it's easier to have a more detailed, or in my mind, a more detailed outline for middle grade, because the characters are kind of just there to let the plot move them along. Whereas an adult, I can't be a plotter or deep outliner, because the characters have to be themselves. They have to do what they think is in their best interest. Especially if you write a character like, I only started Sprikit last night, Sean, and in the first couple of chapters, I'm like, I would have a blast writing a character like him, just because I would have no idea where the F he would go with it. Just him in the second chapter going into the pawn shop, basically. I'm like, this is a fun character to write. But I would never be able to outline that, because he's too unpredictable as a character.
I do. So I'm what do they call a plancer, where like you have a plan, but how you get there is kind of up to whatever comes out on the day. So yeah. So when I'm writing certain, I didn't write in terms of chapters, I wrote in terms of acts, and it's like, in this act, these 3 or 4 things will happen.
Yeah.
And how Sprikit and his company get to those elements, that is where the fun happens. So yeah.
And that's how I work too on my adult series. It's far more freedom.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do an outline for the novella I'm writing right now, but it's hard, because I like to, with my novel, I just had here's these things that I kind of think are going to happen. Right. I have a character who's kind of Sprikitish, in that he is just constantly scheming and just chaotic like crazy. And I'd be writing and be like, this went a completely different direction than where I had planned. I guess I'm changing the things. And for me, that's more fun than trying to fit everything into an outline. I know Greg is in the chat, and he is an outliner. His outlines are longer than some of my chapters.
I don't know how some people actually outline and put dialogue in their outlines. I just feel like, wouldn't that just box you into that idea and that concept and that piece of dialogue? What if that doesn't feel natural in the moment? That's just, I can't do something like that.
And again, not to disparage plotters, because they absolutely have their merits. But just if I'm getting to that level of detail in outline, I'm like, I may as well just write the chapter, because I'm going into that detail. But I think, listen, if you're writing if you're planning a multi-book arc, I think plotting probably is the way to go, right? But if you're going book to book, that's sort of where you can sort of play around with a bit. Yeah.
Greg says he does. So I will put dialogue in my little outlines, but it's mostly just here's some funny dialogue between these 2 characters.
Okay.
And there's going to be a scene that this will work with here when I write this. Natalie says she may have pantsed a 10-book series.
Yeah, it's just, I find it very interesting when people say that they're big outliners. It doesn't compute. 404 air, just don't get it. But whatever works for everybody, whatever gets the book out, that's the process that they need, and follow it to your heart's content.
Do you think the reader can tell whether the author plotted or pantsed, or is that only something that people like us think about?
I would say yes, if it's not executed well. You can tell when an author has a cool idea, but they didn't think that through, and it doesn't, or maybe a subplot or a concept that just never panned out. And you're like, hey, whatever happened to that one idea way back in page 3? They didn't do anything with that. So yeah, you can tell, but I don't know. I think most of us probably have a general idea of our stories and how to, cap everything all together. Or you get George R. R. Martin that just keeps adding subplots, and then he's probably, this is right, it's taken 11 years, is because he forgot them all and lost them on his, 1984, OS DOS computer that he writes on.
You ran out of floppy disks.
Exactly.
And you've got like Scott Lynch in Red Skies, Red Seas Under Red Skies has this subplot with the mysterious woman who's kind of following them, and then she doesn't show up at all in the third book. And if any more books get ever get written, people are like, are we ever going to find out who she was and why she was doing that? Like, because she was. Like, come on.
Yeah. Interesting.
Timothy says pantsers have to write faster or you run the risk of forgetting everything.
I would disagree on that one. I think to use a bit of Stephen King's advice, like a notebook is a place where bad ideas go. If you have a really good idea, that's never leaving your brain. That's going to be eaten into you until it's out on the page. So I don't necessarily agree with that.
And I won't say that I don't have a outline. I do. I like a good spreadsheet. Like I said, I'm a project manager, so I do have a good spreadsheet. So I do write this stuff down, but for the most part, in the scene itself, it's all on the characters and where they're going to take me. But if I do introduce some new concept, then that goes on the spreadsheet, just so I don't forget about it.
So, Bill, I work in finance, and everything's very meticulous and detailed. So
I work with you guys all the time.
Oh God! Well, sorry for whatever it is we do to you, but also project managers drive me up the wall. So we have our grievances, project managers. Stop going over budget. That's what I have to say. Anyway,
great partnerships.
But
John, how tall are you? First off,
I'm 6'2".
Same.
If you guys know the looking for a man in finance thing, Sean's almost there. All right, moving on.
I'm spoken for. Thank you very much. She's in the next room. But what was I going to say? So yeah, I think because our jobs are so detail focused that for us, our writing is our catharsis to just like do whatever and see what happens. So.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about SPFBOX. So we'll start with you, Bill, this time. You can tell us a little bit about like the group you're in, your experience so far, any new connections, people you've met, have you found new readers? Like, how's it gone so far?
I think it's been pretty interesting because I've been following SPFBO for 4-5 years now at this point. I've read plenty of books over the years with this, so I was really excited about being able to finally get into it. And now that I'm in it, I'm finding even more interested in how the different review teams are running. Just because, I'm part of the Silverstones books blog that does reviews. And when Mark Lawrence was actually looking for a replacement, we actually threw our name in the ring, just as a potential possibility. So I'm looking at it a little bit more from a review standpoint. With that in mind, the group I'm in is Philip Chase's group. And what he's done this year, as opposed to the last few years, is he had 6 sub-judges, but it is now gone down to 5. One had to leave the group. So each of the sub-judges has 5. Now they have 6 books to read. And then they'll pick a semifinalist from their batch, and then Philip will read all the semifinalist books and then choose his finalist. I like that setup personally, as opposed to like some of the other judging groups have their own, where they're only reading a certain amount or, whatever the case may be. I like this one specifically because the sub-judge I have, who's a YouTuber. I don't know. Should I say names or does it matter? I don't want to disparage anybody. I'm not disparaging him by any means, but he came out with the statements that he's going to read every book and judge it fairly based on objectiveness, not his tastes. And I felt a lot of comfort of that because I'm not going to lie, going into a competition like this with a middle grade book when not everybody reads middle grade, it was kind of a little bit of a daunting task. And I know Dewey was kind of like very, very nervous about that. So I definitely feel a lot more confident that we're going to get a good shake out of it based on the group and what has been said. With that said, I have looked at the other books in our direct competition, and I read one and got through part of another. We are an eclectic group. Like, it's really eclectic. There's a lit RPG, which is typically not something I like to read. If I'm going to do that, I'd rather just play a video game. There is a regular fantasy. There's the middle grade one. There's I think, based on the blurb and the interactions that I've seen with the author, it's a very satire, humorous story that's almost kind of like a very funny Outlander take. Portal fantasy romance. There's like everything in it if you look at the blurb. And then there's, a vampire book or a vampire monster gothic horror type thing. And I haven't looked at the new one that they just added. This just happened last week because that one judge left. So it's an eclectic group, and I feel like we do have a good shot based on, being if it's going through an objective process versus a subjective process. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But like, we're one of the groups that I haven't seen anybody cut yet. I know some people have already been cut at this point, and I haven't seen anybody out of the Philip Chase group be officially cut. So I might not know, because what our sub judge says, he's going to read one a month and then he's going to review it. So we might not know until, September or whatever. So we got a couple of months to wait. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited and hope it goes well.
Have you felt like you've made any connections with authors or found new readers through being in SPFBO?
I don't know. It's still kind of early. It's kind of interesting because I just did this past weekend. We put Tanna in the Stuff Your Kindle Fantasy Edition promo over the weekend, and there were a couple people that saw Tanna in there and was like, "Oh, I saw that in SPFBO, so I'm really happy to see that here." But that was only on Sunday, so we really haven't gotten much interaction back on that. So it remains to be seen. But one of the guys in my direct group, I actually met on the Discord talking about a different competition, the Indie Geek one. He's doing a judge in there. We were talking about that. And then literally the next week, the SPFBO announcement came out. Oh, here's where you're at. And I'm like, oh, guess what? We're facing off in our direct competition. And he's the one book I did read. His name's Antano Spareboom. City of the Seventh Moon was his book, and I enjoyed it. I reviewed it on the Silverstones blog, but I did not give it a rating on Goodreads or Amazon, even though I posted a review, just because I don't think that's fair to put my bias, my star rating, on a book that I'm directly against. But I know he appreciated that, but he was like, "You could have done it." And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that. That's just not fair. But I did want to boost his book because I enjoyed it, and I like to support indie authors, so that's what I like to do.
All right. And then Sean, why don't you tell us your experience so far with SPFBO?
Yeah, so I was aware of it as far as last year when I started getting involved in the author Twitter space, and I knew that was something to enter, because for me it's not really about winning it. It's about getting my book in front of more eyes, right? That's sort of, that's how I see it. So I entered it. Even though I knew it was a random draw, I still was ready to go on the dot at the time in case that had any kind of factor whatsoever. Anyway, the powers that be were smiling on me, and my book did get in. I'm part of the Fantasy Book Critic group, So I'm up against books. Well, one big book there being Mushroom Blues by Adrian M. Gibson. So that's obviously a big one in there. And then my group is being judged by a fellow called here, and from reading some of his reviews, he seems to vibe with silly stuff, kind of funny fantasy. So I'm kind of hoping that Sprikit will resonate with him. I think they did just cut 6 books maybe a week ago, and they said they read 25% of them. So I'm hoping that Mahir is adhering to that, because I think my book is a pretty good first impression from even the first couple of chapters. So I hope if someone's 25% in, they're at least willing to give the rest of it a go. I've not really looked into reading any of the fellow SPFBO books in my group, because I'm currently trying to make my way through some of the Secret Scribes' books. So I'm currently reading Garantia's Guardian by L.M. Douglas, and I'm having a good time with that.
Just finished that one.
Yeah, I need to pick it up again. It's been a hectic week, but what I will but I will definitely. There's a handful in that group that look quite interesting to me, so I'll definitely be reading some of those. For me, it's about staying in as long as I can. I know because of it, I've gotten there's a blogger in the Facebook group. I feel awful now because I completely forget drawing a blank on their name, but they're reviewing my book because it looks interesting in the SPFBO group, and they should be putting on a review on their blog but next month, and they say they really enjoyed the book. I'm going to find their name because I think they deserve to have to be name dropped on this live stream. But yeah, that's really about it for me in the SPFBO. Also, I never realized people pronounced it phonetically SPFBO. I was just calling it SPFPO, but I guess it saves more time just saying SPFBO, right? So.
SPFBOX.
SPFBOX sounds like something you order in like Popeyes. I have a SPFBOX.
I really didn't pay attention to SPFBO beyond I had read Josiah Bancroft's Senlin Ascend series, and I'd read a few other books that had been in SPFBO at one point and then were traditionally published until really like the finalist stage of SPFBO 9. So I'm very new to the whole, like, how the group stages, to use a soccer term, how they work. But it's been interesting reading and just like figuring out this whole system that's completely new to me.
It was interesting because SPFBO was like when I first made the decision to go self-pub, probably around COVID time. It was SPFBO was really where I got the list of what books I should start looking into to read and see what is out there in self-pub. Because, obviously there's that stigma that always exists that self-pub is weaker than trad pub. The books suck. The authors don't do a good job, all that good stuff that they claim we don't do. So when finding SPFBO, because I actually read Senlin Ascends, and found like that was after he got traditionally published. What is it? Orbit? Is that who did it? I think Orbit did it. When I found out he was part of the SPFBO contest, I was like, oh shit, I love that book. I'm going to go see what that's all about. And that's when I learned about it. And I found my TBR, especially with self-pub authors, started from SPFBO because I just was like, this is 300 books, and see which ones were rated well and all that stuff. And I started from there, and that's how I got into like reading indie. Almost that's all I read really now is self-pub. I have 2 authors that are traditionally published that I'll read anything they put out, but other than that, I don't read much traditional pub anymore.
Basically, if Nicholas Eames continues to publish books, I will read all of those books. He's one of my favorites. But beyond that, like most
6 years.
It's been a few years.
6.
And then obviously Scott Lynch as well. If he writes things, I will read them. But beyond that, like since I started reading indie fantasy in February, I think I have only read that, and I'm having a lot more fun with that than I did with a lot of the trad stuff that I don't know, just a lot of it seemed the same.
The same. It's because they're all
Yeah.
looking for the same trend, and that's you don't get that in self-pub. You get such differences, and you can find your own niche, and that's what I love about self-pub.
And to talk about the two books I'm currently reading, I'm reading this one called The Ballad of Sprikit the Bard and Company. I'm about
Oh God, it sounds awful.
3/4 of the way through that one right now, and it's great. And I'm reading an arc of this one book that has like spaceships and dragons, according to the cover, I think. No spaceships. I don't know. I might be wrong here. But the God's Blood tragedy, as you can not really see.
Not see because it's a green cover. That's the only thing, Natalie. Having a green cover doesn't show up on the green screen.
But yeah, indie is so much more fun than trad was. And Timothy makes a great point here. Reading indie made me forget that most trad ebooks are like $10. It's insane. Some of them are $14.99 now.
I know, it's insane that they do that.
Are you kidding me? I could buy a paperback for that.
Yeah.
Same, Natalie. Same.
By the way, I found the name of that blogger. It's Angelica Rust.
Angelica Rust. Okay. Yeah, I knew I had seen her write that she was going to read yours.
Yeah.
So, very cool. Let's see. Have either of you, are you guys in like the SPFBO Discords and all the things with all the other authors where they talk about everything?
I am, but I don't engage with it too much just because I just haven't been. I'm mostly active in our Secret Scribes Discord. But
wait, excuse me for a
but
second.
no, I was at the start, but I might hop back in there. Yeah, sure.
It's too much, too overwhelming. Like I had to mute the channel. Like I'm just like, no, I can't focus. It's just too much.
You got to write Tanna too.
Well, and I got to write another adult series on the side too, so it's multiple books to write, and then the coming months. And then for some reason, I keep offering to edit people's books and reading their arcs, and I'm like, why do I do this to myself?
Because you want to read the arcs.
I know.
Good. Oh, Nick is going to relentlessly tag you in the SPFBO Discord until you come back.
It's muted; you can't see it, right?
You can still see the
tag you; it'll still show up.
Oh God! Okay.
And then if you're like me, you have to make all the notifications go away.
I'm the same way. Like I don't like having. It's like emails. I don't know how people have like 10,000 unread emails. Like, what is wrong with you?
I have 0. I have to open every single one of them. I cannot have a notification.
I've got 3 notifications just hanging out here in Discord that I'm not going to open just out of pure spite for YouTube. But just know that I've got 2 unopened notifications. Good luck
There's
sleeping
something
tonight.
about reading an arc before anyone else gets to see it.
That's true.
I've read a couple of arcs. Actually, the only arcs that I've read are both Ari Sanders, Path of Blades, and Demon's Tear. Yeah, I've read Demon's Tear on holiday. And yeah, Path of Blades. That's how I first got to know Ari Sanders. Was he said I want someone to have arcs, and I just happened to see him. I said, yeah, grand, send it across, and have a good time with it. And then a beautiful friendship flourished from there, and then it eventually led to the Secret Scribes.
And now A Path of Potatoes is coming out. His new book.
We had to get a potato joke in there.
So for those of you who don't know, so Ari Sanders made a fake cover of his book Path of Blades where he changed the name to Path of Potatoes. And then he rebranded my book as The Potatoes of War. So he's on a little bit of a changing books to have potatoes in the title thing. And I would do
the Ballad of Sprikit the Bard and potatoes. I think that's
So Dewey is here now. Bill, do you want to repeat any of the things you said about him?
Yeah, I said he's sensitive. I said he needs a kick in the pants. I said he's just like Gale the Fort, very grumpy. I did give him some compliments. He is an
You
excellent
said he had a
artist.
better beard than you, I think.
He does have a better beard than me.
Does he?
He does. I will give him that. He's got a very nice beard. It comes in nice and moonshine. There's Eamon.
Pour one out for Moonshine. By the way, our live today is sponsored by Lime LaCroix. Lime LaCroix, everyone.
I don't know what that is.
Sparkling water.
Ah, okay, Grant.
I
The
got
only thing that
Chipotle.
matters in this world. So, in honor of Moonshine, where are your swords?
It's in the other room. My wife is
Wow.
sleeping.
Yeah, I don't.
Sean, do you own a sword?
I don't own a sword, but I own many knives, purely for the purposes of cooking. I don't have any kind of weapon. I don't need a weapon where I live, thankfully. You know, I know. There's a bit of a stigma about London or Stallion people, but you know, I don't hang in those circles, so to speak. So no, I do not have a sword, and you will never find me holding a sword in any official photograph. And if there is one of me, then it's AI. I'm sorry.
Mine's a fake sword. So, like, if someone broke into my house, I'd be like hitting them with my little foam sword.
What's it made? Oh, it's foam. Oh, if it was wood, you give a good battering across the head to at least stomach.
I mean, I feel like the first thing I will do whenever I publish my book is with the first royalty check that actually let's say like with the first 47 royalty checks is buy a
I was gonna
sword.
say you're gonna be waiting a while.
Not a real sword, still just like one of the like $100 practice swords that's metal. I don't need a real actual pointy one on the end.
I wanted to buy a lute, keeping in with.
I mean, I do want a lute as well.
They're bloody expensive. Like an actual proper lute is very expensive. They're like.
Well, I mean, to get one like
$20.
Eloquence, you gotta have 100 years or hundreds of years. You know, some wars to go through. That type of stuff.
Yeah. Silver strings, all that fun stuff.
I bet Rob knows a guy. You know, he knows a sword guy. I'm sure he knows. He plays guitar. He probably knows a guitar guy as well. We have a question from Timothy. What about a sword lute? And what if Pegs, the rooster in book 2, has a peg leg sword that also is a lute?
Don't give Dewey ideas. He'll make it happen.
Dewey, even if you don't make this happen in the book, I need a drawing of Pegs with a lute foot.
I like the lute that Edgin the Bard had in Dungeons and Dragons movie, where like it was like one side was like just covered in like a slab of metal or wood, and just walloped people on the head with it. So that was very, very.
That movie was far better than it should have been. Like
I really enjoyed that movie.
Underrated.
A lot of fun. My girlfriend, who's not into fantasy whatsoever, watched it and had a blast. So
that's
I
one.
thought it was fantastic.
I've had 3 different people read my novel separately without me saying anything and say, you know, it reminded me of the D&D movie, and I'm like, that's a really big compliment to me right there, because that's a great movie.
I liked it.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. In general, bards are always the best. Even here. So my question, I had this question for Sean about Sprikit.
okay.
First off, it's a 2-part question. 1, are you more like Sprikit or Torg?
Okay, yeah, this is an interesting question. So I'm like both of them. So you know how we have the id and the ego, and like your id is like your like basic like inhibitions, like your goblin mode essentially, and your ego keeps your id in check. Like Torg is the ego, and Sprikit's the id, and they're like both in my head, so they keep keeping me in check. So Sprikit's like my more playful side, my more kind of joking around side, and then Torg is my serious side. When you know when certain circumstances arise, I sort of knuckle down on it and sort of get to it and keep things in check and think things through. So yeah, I depends on the situation, but I like to think there are times where I can exhibit both the humor of Sprikit while also the rationality and the stoicism of Torg.
All right, and part 2 of this question is, as a tall person, how do you write about such a short person?
With glee, complete glee, because it's like, this is fantasy to me. I could never be this guy, ever, never. You write it from their perspective. I don't know, because it's hard to imagine being short. So I guess I get on my knees while I'm writing. I'm kind of looking up and all this. So this is what it's like, that's sort of what I do. Yeah.
I'm lucky enough with the short character. I just asked my wife what it's like because she's short. She's not watching this, so I can say whatever.
You can get away with it.
Short.
My cheat code for writing Sprikit is a Sprikit looked up. That's easy, right? Because then you know he's saying, and that's basically very rarely he'll look at anything at eye level.
That could be your like bad pitch. There's videos like give a bad pitch of your book. You'd be like, Sprikit looks up.
In song form.
In song form.
And then let's see. Oh, here we go. Bill, this is a question for you, and it's kind of messed up here because I apparently hit like voice to text on my phone, and it wrote out a bunch of stuff we were talking about here in this chat onto my Google Doc that has all of the questions. But the question was, Bill, when are we going to get a Pegs the Rooster standalone series? Maybe like a grimdark adult series where Pegs like goes out and F's some people up.
That's funny because I actually brought this up to Dewey the other night when we were talking, and he's like, "Oh, that would be a fun story to write." And it's funny you mentioned that because somebody else asked us about a Thistle Willow side story. So I'm thinking maybe we can do some side novellas or an anthology with those two, and then I want to see more of the Bria, which are the magical folk,
right?
Which I think Sprikit would hang out with before they turned into beavers, which could be a fun story. But yeah, there is a lot we can do with Pegs. Without getting into spoilers, because Pegs has a role to play in there in the past. So I think Beaver Noir. Whoever wrote that, was that you, Dave?
That was me, yeah. Beaver Noir and Grim Rooster Dark.
Okay, so Beaver Noir is what we're gonna write next. But no, I think there is some possibilities there. So just to make you happy, we might end up doing it.
Everyone needs, like, I'd asked you if you had roosters in the God's Blood tragedy because they need to be. So here's the question. I have not finished Sprikit yet. Are there roosters? Is there anything for me to look forward to?
Are there roosters in Sprikit?
Yeah, like an end of the book rooster, like.
Well, not on the page, but eggs. People have like eggs and they eat eggs. So if there are eggs, then there are chickens and there are roosters. So yes, there are roosters in Sprikit.
Sold. All right. Dewey says you guys could be persuaded. That's what I like to hear.
Just involves me kicking Dewey in the pants to get the writing done.
I mean, as we talked about Mushroom Blues already with the Mushroom Noir, Fungal Noir. It's time for Beaver Noir.
Peg leg noir. We can have Peg be the like the detective with the Beaver Noir. Beaver Noir just sounds so dirty.
It really does.
And this is not the story Dewey will write. Bless his heart is what we say here in America in the South.
A dame walked into the office. I was, building a dam with my teeth. And I looked at him and said, "What do you want?"
Exactly. Selva walked in.
Oh, you get away with salmon as a swear as well.
I'm talking about the little animal with the teeth that builds dams.
This
is a middle grade book, Bill.
Yeah, I know, but we're not going to put Grimdark in middle grade. Oh, God, that's funny.
Let's see. Oh, yes. Sean, would you please buy Bill a balloon and send it to him?
Oh, because there's a balloon in
He's
my
been
author
very
picture.
sad and alone about not owning a balloon.
Okay, sure. What kind of balloon do you want, Bill?
It should look like a lute.
Like a lute. Okay, I can try to arrange that. I mean, the postage is going to be ridiculously expensive to get that across to you, so I will be sort of. I'm sort of guessing that you'll pay for the duty, the import duty.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
grand. Yeah,
Yeah.
boom. Or what I can do if
Put it on
it's a
day sale.
balloon, I'll just let it go. I'll let it float away, and it'll get to you eventually, right? It'll just like sort of,
Like a spy balloon.
prevailing wind will take it across to stateside.
And it'll show up.
We already
in
have
Texas.
balloons coming stateside, but we had to. Don't do that.
Yeah. I had another question in here somewhere, but all it says now is a big thing about indie books are better and trad books cost $10. And just because, yeah, voice to text people, it is the way to go. Oh, here's one. Influences or authors you admire. We'll go with Bill first.
Well, for this story, that's hard because I haven't read a ton of middle grade, so I can't say.
And you can
A
just
lot
talk
has-
in general authors that you admire. Doesn't have to be related to Tanna.
No, and okay, so we already talked about Nicholas Eames. He's fantastic. One of the two trad publishers or trad authors that I read now is Jay Kristoff and Gareth Hanrahan. Gareth Hanrahan is phenomenal. He's I don't know if you guys have read him. The Gutter Prayer is the first book that he wrote in his Black Iron Legacy. I love it because he's weird. Like the stuff that he comes up with is just weird and outlandish. Like he's got these magical beings that are made up of like a bunch of different worms and stuff like that in his book. It's just weird. I love it. Fantastic stuff. So I would definitely say he's up there lately. And then obviously, it's hard to not say that the classics like Robert Jordan, Terry Brooks is really probably the first fantasy that I read. I read the genre series before I read Tolkien. Back when I was in 5th grade, we had the book it. I don't know if you in the UK you probably don't have this, but in the US there was a program back in the 90s called Book It, where it was you would read books and then it was partnered with Pizza Hut. So if you read enough books, you would get a personal pan pizza and stuff like that. So I read it for that. I read, and there was also, my school had where if you passed a test, like you took a test based on the book, so like they would ask questions on it. And if you passed that, you would get a bunch of like, as a kid, when you're 10 years old, get a bunch of candy or whatever and stuff like that. You want to do it. And it was based on points. So the genre series, the first book, Sword of Shannara, was actually like one of the most highest point levels you can get at that age. So that's when I just started reading fantasy, was the genre series in the mid 90s, early 90s. So yeah, Terry Brooks is probably like on the pedestal for me. And when I got to meet him a couple of years ago at a book signing, just to like meet him and talk to him for like 30 seconds was just one of the coolest things I've ever done, or at least in like the bookish industry, like community and style, stuff like that.
All right. And before we get to Sean, anyone in the comments who has any questions of any sort, type those out in the comments and we will answer them here in a minute. Audrey just showed up and said, "I'm sorry I'm late. Everyone with accents, talk for another hour, please." People with accents, Sean, this is your time.
Technically, we all have accents. Everyone has an accent. But for some reason, Americans say, "Oh, you have an accent," and it's like, "So do you, my friend. We all have accents." But I know what they mean. So I guess when it comes to my obviously Terry Pratchett, right? I mean, he is the guy for comedic fantasy. I just finished reading Small Gods there, and it probably was my favorite Pratchett so far because it just really it kind of spoke to my inner Catholic. It was a really great like satire of religion in terms of faith, and then the institution of religion, and just really really funny book. Made me think as well. I think a Pratchett book always makes you think. So yeah, definitely Terry Pratchett. I would also say, goodness, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to repeat any of the kind of the ones that Bill said. So I would say also I'm big. Recently, I've gotten into Joe Abercrombie. I think he's really good at like writing a character. Like, I think my favorite character I've read this year has been Sandan Glokta in First Law. I need to finish the third one, which I'll get to later on in the year once I've read a couple of Secret Scribes books. But just the ability to like just each, and it's a real influence on my writing is that when I switch POV, Sprikit to Torg, you can tell from the way it's written that it's this character. Abercrombie's excellent at like voice and a character's voice, so I really do admire him for that. And then similarly, I'd also say Robin Hobb, just in terms of her ability to like get inside the head of a person and their psyche. I've only read Assassin's Apprentice, but I really felt like I was like in that character's head and just yeah. I mean, what a great book. Yeah. So
she's a great writer. She's a little bit too mean to dogs for me. Like,
oh,
man, that destroyed me. I'm one of those. I can't do whenever animals.
So do you Google like does the dog die before you see a movie?
Oh man, if a
website?
dog dies in the movie, I'm just kind of like, why?
2 thumbs down.
2 thumbs down. The dog died. And that's, it's a personal preference. Dogs are amazing. I say this as my dog is up against me right now, trying to tell me that this is boring and me talking is not as fun as like if I were, taking her for a walk or something like that. All right, here we go with, if you were to have your novels adapted, would you rather it be a movie, show, animation, or graphic novel?
Well, I mean, animation can be a movie or a show, right? So, I think Sprikit would make a pretty good 6-part animated series. Each episode's no more than 30 to 40 minutes. I think the pacing of it, yeah, I think I would love if it was in the style of something like Arcane or Blue Eye Samurai, like 3D heavily stylized. That's a real big thing at the moment, and I think that would definitely suit the style of my novel big time.
All right, Bill.
It's kind of interesting because since Dewey is an artist, graphic novel would be really cool if he had the time, but this would definitely make a good show because a lot of the book is kind of episodic. And that's kind of how a lot of middle grade books or shows can be, is where they're a small task. Then it's almost kind of like a progression, except for it's not a progression fantasy. So I'd say animated show would be pretty cool too. But yeah, like Dewey said, graphic novel would be the ultimate. But he would have to do it. And I don't think he has the time to do it.
For me, I'm going to say I want mine to be like a 6-part BBC miniseries, like what they Masterpiece Theater in the US. What do you call it? I don't know what they called. Probably just called it, BBC.
Why the BBC?
I mean, I'm
talking about Morning in America.
The 90s growing up, like my mom's favorite thing ever was the 90s Pride and Prejudice miniseries, and we watched that like every 4 months. But then we watched a bunch of the other ones around that same time, and I always felt like I wanted them to make one of the Count of Monte Cristo. It would have been like a 49-hour long thing but they do every single thing that happens in the book. Like they're incredibly they stick with what happened, and they don't like, oh, let's cut out that entire plot arc because it's not going to fit in our 2-hour-long movie. They're like, no, it was in the book. It is in the miniseries. And I love that. That is, I'm going to say we're going to go with the BBC miniseries. Obviously, casting like 1990s Colin Firth in some role. Like he's going to have to go back in time. I'm sure I could write a character jumping into a lake or whatever. That was a big, I don't know if you guys know this, but that was a big moment for a lot of women around the world whenever Colin Firth, like in just like his like white undershirt, he jumps into a pond for no reason except he's walking toward his big mansion and he just is like, you know what? I'm hot. I'm going to jump in this pond and swim. So he swims across the pond and he goes to his house and he opens the door and goes in and he's all upset. And there's Elizabeth Bennet and she's like, oh, damn. I rejected this dude not that long ago because I thought he was proud and annoying. But now that shirt is like pressed against his chest and he is now hot. Maybe I was wrong about him.
Yeah.
Audrey says he was swimming and it was a summer day and he'd been writing all day. Basically, it was a reason for them to put attractive dude in see-through shirt on camera.
Does that happen in the Pride and Prejudice's book? Is that a scene in the book?
No, it does not. That's like one of the things that's just like out of nowhere. It's like
I thought
Darcy's gonna swim and look hot.
It's a Jane Austen novel, right? Pride and Prejudice.
Yes.
So I was for a second I thought like Jane Austen like invented the concept of the wet t-shirt competition, like just through.
She did actually. That's something. I want to see a book version of Pride and Prejudice that says like the original wet t-shirt competition.
Darcy goes on spring break. Yeah.
Dewey says he would make time for the graphic novel, or would he make time for Colin Firth jumping in a pond of water? I don't know.
I mean, he'd have to do both.
Let's see. If you were going to have an actor play the role of your main character or main characters, who would you cast? If you can think of anyone. I don't know enough new actors to really pick someone age appropriate, but I can go off someone 20 years ago.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it'd be impossible to do it for ours.
I'm trying to think of like, because if it's animated, it'd be a voice. Who's good at like?
I mean, I think Wishbone can carry the Peg's role very well, but Rach is not going to get that reference because she's too young.
One of our Secret Scribes members, Rach R.A. Sandpiper, is too young to know Wishbone. Those of you in the comments, hopefully you all know Wishbone. Wishbone was like a canon event for all of the people that are in their mid to late 30s growing up, I feel like, where you were like, I already liked reading, but it's like reading is cool, and also that dog likes to read, and it's even more cool.
Okay. Thinking of an actor, I feel like the voice I would want would be like the guy who plays the curly-haired fella in Stranger Things, the Eddie Munson character. What's that? Joseph Quinn is the actor. He's
something.
Joseph Quinn.
Joe,
His
Quinn.
voice is very like when he's in his English accent. That's sort of how I would that kind of like cadence I would expect. But it's a hard one actually. Yeah. Honestly, I
haven't actually seen the later seasons of Stranger Things.
Oh yeah.
To like know what he talks like, but
there's a scene where he shreds Master of the Puppets on a metal guitar. On a guitar.
He doesn't have an English accent though in Stranger Things.
No, it's not working.
Natalie is dead to us.
I'll be fully I'll be very forward here. I do not know what Wishbone is either. I thought you were talking about Monkey Bone, that
film. It was a PBS show. PBS is public broadcast station. You know, every place in America back in the day before satellites and streaming and all that stuff, you had your 5 basic channels: 2, 5, 7, and 9, and 11. 11 was PBS.
Okay.
And Wishbone.
And you'd come home from school, and it'd be the only thing your mom would let you watch, and so you'd watch that, and you'd watch Where in the World or Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego.
Carmen Sandiego. But Wishbone was a Jack Russell Terrier that would be in a library, and he would dive into different books, and he would, play the character in the book.
Right. Okay.
As a Jack Russell Terrier. And it was just like The Greatest Show. And it'd be like, what's the story, Wishbone?
What's the story, Wishbone?
Exactly. Better
Sounds
singer
wonderful.
can do it.
Hello. Hi. My own Wishbone is still telling me that
I can hear him
live
panting.
streams are not as fun as walks. But it's 106 degrees or something outside right now, so we're not going for a walk. Hi. Let's see. I remember him being Robin Hood. He was super cute. Yes. An excellent episode.
Google Wishbone.
I feel like if you haven't ever seen Wishbone, you need to get on YouTube, look for Wishbone the dog.
Oh, it's an actual dog. I thought it was like a cartoon.
An actual dog. Yes. There was also some like kids who had little like life lessons that they learned, and they owned the dog, but the dog would be like his story would connect to their life lesson. And that part was fine and all, but it was mostly about Wishbone telling the stories.
Oh my! There's one of him drawing a bow. That's incredible.
Yes.
It made me want a Jack Russell Terrier for my whole life until I realized how little shits they are.
They are the worst.
Like,
I mean, I love
pain
them,
in
but
the ass.
also
They're not nice dogs generally.
No, they're little jerks. All terriers are, though.
I could see, like, if Sprikit was American, I could see, like, Neil Patrick Harris from How I Met Your Mother days.
Oh, that's interesting.
Being him just for, like, the complete over-the-top doing whatever saying and doing whatever to get the thing he wants kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't fit in terms of a lot of other things, but just like that vibe of that character.
Yeah, it's a fun vibe. Yeah, agreed.
And I can't even think of, I don't know enough new actors, but Pegs would be like, just imagine like Bruce Willis voicing Pegs.
Prime Bruce Willis.
Prime Bruce Willis. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yeah. Yippee.
No, Mother Clucker, because he's a rooster.
Yes, Mother Clucker.
Yeah.
This is a family live stream. We're talking to middle grade authors over
yes, we all have families in here.
Yeah. Right. Any other comments from people or any other questions from people in the comments? Anything you've wanted to know, you've been waiting for, remarks about any of us, rude comments about bald people, whatever. We probably got another just a few more minutes at the most here. And we'll see. Are there going to be any comments? Come on, Pete. There we go. Great job. That's a comment. Great job. Thank you, Timothy.
Tim.
Oh, by the way, Sean, you'll probably be asleep by this point, but I think it's in 3.5 hours, 7 p.m. or is it 6 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. I'm pretty sure Timothy is going to be on. Are you on Bald and Balding tonight, Timothy? 7 p.m. Eastern, so 6 p.m. my time. Timothy's on Bald and Balding. It's a fun show. If you were watching this one and you have a little bit more time this evening, I'm going to try to get there for that one. Dewey says it's fantastic talk, probably because he missed all of Bill's rude comments. But,
the first 15 minutes was a complete like anti-Dewey diatribe. I was getting very concerned. I was very worried. I was privately messaging, David. Say what's going on.
You're just like, why does Bill hate this Dewey guy so much?
Yeah. How's this going to work out when we write books and everything? It just makes no sense. Can't trust him.
All right. Well, we'll be back again some other time with more Secret Scribes talk from Sean and Bill. Thank you guys.
Buy my book.
It's
pretty good.
Tanna the Tendersword, Tenacious Tales, Tanna the Tendersword, SPFBOX winners, both of them. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.